And joining me now is the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. Mr. Vice President, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, good to see you, Chuck.
Let me start with the overnight developments in the ban. We now have, there's 10 different suits in various courts. Right. Obviously, the big one now has to one in Washington State. Let me ask you the question this way, and I know you're pursuing an appeal to this decision.
We are.
Is it time to sort of cut bait and say, you know what, rescind the order, go through Congress? Because there is support for the idea, but the specifics appear to be a challenge for you. Any thought of essentially rescinding and trying again?
From the outset of his campaign for president and the outset of this administration, President Trump has made it clear he's going to put the safety and security of the American people first. And using a list of countries that the Obama administration and the Congress have certified were compromised by terrorist influence, 7 different countries, permanently suspending immigration from Syria and suspending for a set period of time the remaining 6 countries is consistent with the president's commitment to do just that. We're very confident the president's operating within his authority as president, both under the Constitution and under clear statutory law. That's what's so frustrating about the decision.
Well, in all honesty, the statutory law is confusing because there's the one that you're referring to in 1952, but there's the one that was passed in the 60s. It seems that some people believe makes this unconstitutional.
Well, look. When you have people as diverse as Alan Dershowitz and Jonathan Turley, who have acknowledged the merits of the president's action under the Constitution and the law, I think it speaks for itself. We're very confident that we're going to prevail. We'll accomplish the stay, and we'll win the case on the merits. But again, the focus here is on the safety and security of the American people.
That's why my question on the idea of sort of pulling it, because if this is a concern, and this is something that's, you can't wait. You and I both know the court system's going to take a while. This could take weeks, maybe months. Why not do this in a way where you have proper consultations with different departments? There was a part of this that many Republicans in Congress believe it was done hastily. You have an opportunity to do a do-over. Why not?
Yeah, it was not done hastily. There may have been some leaders on Capitol Hill that were not informed in the usual niceties of Washington, D.C. But look, we live in a very dangerous world. The reality is there are people around the globe who have inspired violence here in the homeland. We just saw in the basement of the Louvre a machete-wielding terrorist from Egypt that came into that country. I mean, the American people know that the threats that we face are real. And they elected President Donald Trump for many reasons, but one of them was for us to rethink our immigration policies relative to ensuring that people who represent a threat to our families and communities don't come into this country. We'll continue to press that, and we remain very confident that the president's actions are on solid constitutional and legal grounds.
Well, let me take you at your word on that. You just brought up the Louvre issue. You noted that the person came through from Egypt. But on this travel ban, no Egypt, no Saudi Arabia, no Pakistan, no Afghanistan. That is, if this is your concern, then why weren't those countries included? It does feel as if it was more done because you wanted that Obama talking point.
Well, no, it was done because both the Congress and the prior administration identified 7 countries, one in Syria, torn asunder by civil war, and the other 6 that lack. Here's the issue. As Secretary Kelly said so well in that press conference, the issue is these are countries that do not have the internal systems in place so that we can be confident today that when people present themselves for access to the United States, that they are who they say they are. Now, there's a 30-day review underway. There's a temporary suspension. We're going to work with those remaining 6 countries to make recommendations for ways that they can enhance. But the other countries that you mentioned, the United States, our policy has been that we're confident that when someone comes from that country, that they are in fact who they say they are. But this is, again, this is really about the safety and security of the American people. It is not a religious ban. It is a ban of people coming into this country from countries for which we cannot be confident that they don't represent a threat.
But did the president undermine your case here in the religious ban when he told the Christian Broadcasting Network that they would prioritize Christians?
Well, I think the president was reflecting on the fact that Christians who have faced persecution across the wider Middle East have not been treated oftentimes
so it's
the same
religious
as others.
test.
And it's not a religious test. I know people have been straining to do that. It identified 7 countries irrespective of the religious composition of those countries. 7 countries had been compromised by terrorism. And I got to tell you, look, we respect the right of every American to be heard in protest, online, their messages, and that's what freedom looks like, and that's what freedom sounds like. But I truly do believe that a majority of the American people are grateful that we have a president who's willing to take decisive action, use the authority he has under the Constitution and the law to pause with regard to these 7 countries and rethink the way that we admit people in America.
You don't accept the notion that you guys did this a little too hastily and a little sloppy?
We live in a dangerous world. I think the American people welcome a president as decisive and as action-oriented as President Trump.
I want to ask you about the president's criticism. He called him a so-called judge.
Yeah.
That is the leader of the executive branch saying something that's that made a lot of people uncomfortable. I know your answer is, hey, this is Donald Trump. People need to get used to it. But there is a tendency here to just not take criticism constructively or seriously. He accused Chuck Schumer of having fake tears. It's like anytime he gets some sort of critique, he wants to demunify them, make them go away. Is that healthy?
Well, look, the President of the United States has every right to criticize the other 2 branches of government, and we have a long tradition of that in this country. But
is this a constructive way to do it?
I think people find it very refreshing that they not only understand this president's mind, but they understand how he feels about things. He expresses himself in a unique way. And again, the judge's actions, look, the judge's actions in this case in Washington, which are at odds with a federal district court judge in Boston who upheld the constitutionality of the president's actions, the judge's actions in this case, making decisions about American foreign policy and national security, it's just very frustrating to the president, to our whole administration, to millions of Americans who want to see judges that will uphold the law and recognize
all he did was put a
the
pause.
authority the President of the United States has under the Constitution to manage who comes into this country.
Well, all he did was put a pause. But on this issue of criticism, I found something you said about President Obama 7 years ago. Take a listen.
This president has shown an unusual interest in commenting on his critics in the media and here on Capitol Hill. The American people don't want to hear the president's reflections and commentary on criticism.
Look, and I know that when one party's in power, the other party says things like that, but that is what Congressman Mike Pence thought of when presidents got too caught up in their criticisms. Should the president take the advice of Congressman Mike Pence?
Well, my hair's the same color as it was back then, but, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about Sure, the prerogative presidents have to be able to respond to their critics. Look, the President of the United States represents all the American people. And in President Donald Trump, just like his predecessor, he's going to exercise the prerogative to criticize other branches of government when he thinks they're not acting in a way that's consistent with the best interests of the American people.
All right, I got to ask you to respond to something, an excerpt of the Super Bowl interview the president's doing about Vladimir Putin. Here it is.
Do you respect Putin?
I do respect him. Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very
He's a
possible
killer,
I
though.
won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
Moral equivalency?
No.
Is there a moral equivalency there? What was that, Mr. Vice President?
No, not in the least. Not in the least. I mean, look, President Trump has been willing to be critical of our country's actions in the past, but what you're hearing there is a determination by the President of the United States to not let semantics or the arguments of the past get in the way of exploring the ability to work together with Russia and with President Putin in the days ahead. Specifically, if you played the rest of that interview, he said he didn't know if we would be able to get along with them better, but the president's top priority is to hunt down and destroy ISIS at its source. We have a common interest with Russia to do that. The president has made it very clear. He doesn't know whether he'll have a better relationship with Russia.
I mean, you know the Putin record here. Let me just put it up here. Obviously, a former KGB agent, in itself an institution of mass killings. What he's done to fund and promote the separatists in eastern Ukraine. Proxy wars that he's gotten involved in that, of course, ended up in the killing of innocent passengers on MH17. Then there's the list of mysterious deaths that are Putin-related. This is not something, what American leader has done something similar? That's what the president seemed to say there.
No, that's not not what the president said in the least. About
Then why can't he say a negative thing about Vladimir Putin?
He has expressed himself in the campaign, an election that he won, that he was determined to go forward and see whether or not we might be able to start anew in a relationship with Russia. I mean, the president has said many times, if we got along with Russia better, that would be a good thing for the world. If we were able to work with Russia to hunt down and destroy ISIS and confront radical Islamic terrorism, that would be a good thing. And what you have in President Trump is someone who is not going to look in the rearview mirror so much as looking out the windshield. But he's also made it very clear, Chuck, maybe not, maybe it's not going to work out, but I think he's absolutely determined. He had a productive conversation with President Putin. Okay. He spoke to the Ukrainian President, Poroshenko, yesterday about the need to maintain the ceasefire. He's going to continue to engage these world leaders. He's going to put America first. And he's going to look, as he always does, for a way that we can move forward and make a deal that will advance the interests of the United States.
Are you comfortable with using those same words to describe Vladimir Putin?
Well, using what words?
That basically, you know, yeah, he's a bad guy, but we've done some bad things too. Are you comfortable with that moral equivalency?
Again, I don't accept that it's a moral equivalency. I really don't, Chuck.
Do you think he misspoke?
No, I truly believe. Look, President Trump has been critical of American policy in the past, and I expect he's always going to continue to be candid with the American people. But what you have in this president is an absolute determination to re-engage the world. I see it in the telephone calls with world leaders. We saw it when Prime Minister May came. But it's to re-engage world leaders on American interests, to bring American strength back to the world stage. Okay. And in President Donald Trump, people know that here's someone who knows how to put a deal together. Right. And if he can make a deal with Russia or other countries that's going to advance the security of the American people, advance the interest of peace in the world, we're going to look to do that.
All right, Vice President Pence, I'm going to leave it there. I know you're about to go to the Super Bowl. Do you have a rooting interest?
You know, the Indianapolis Colts are not there, so I'll be on neutral ground, but no, it's going to be a great game, and we're going to be very humbled to have the opportunity to travel with a couple of America's heroes that we'll be able to bring down to the Super Bowl team.
And I know we're all looking forward to seeing former President Bush toss that coin. Yeah. That'll be great to see him there.
What a blessing.
All right, Mr. Vice President, thanks for coming in and sharing your views. I appreciate it. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.